Welcome to the Easy Vibes podcast, your escape to calm, uplifting conversations. Whether you're unwinding or recharging, we've got the perfect vibe for you. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it.
Welcome to the Easy Vibes podcast, the show where we explore the stories behind the sounds that shape our lives. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Eden. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the technology that put music in our pockets and soundtracks on the go.
But before we get to the cassette, we have to talk about its weird, clunky ancestor, the 8-track tape.
Oh, the 8-track. It was a real quirk of engineering. It was an endless loop of tape in a giant cartridge. You couldn't rewind it, you could only switch between 4 programs, and songs would often get cut in half with a loud kerchunk as the track changed right in the middle of a guitar solo.
That's right, we're talking about the format that defined a generation. A small plastic rectangle with 2 tiny spools of tape, the cassette.
The cassette tape. It was revolutionary because for the first time, your music could truly go with you. And that was all thanks to one iconic piece of hardware, the Sony Walkman.
The Walkman changed everything. Suddenly, you had a personal soundtrack to your life. Walking to school, riding the bus, sitting in your room, you could create your own private audio bubble. It was an internal experience.
Totally. But then there was the polar opposite of the Walkman, the boombox. That wasn't about a private bubble. It was a public declaration. Carrying a boombox on your shoulder wasn't just about listening to music. It was about being seen listening to music. It was a social statement.
It was pure performance, and the fuel for both the Walkman and the boombox was the mixtape. The art of the mixtape is something we've truly lost. It was a language of its own.
It was the highest form of affection. You'd spend hours waiting by the radio, finger hovering over the record button, just to catch that one song, and you had to get the timing perfect to avoid cutting off the DJ's intro.
And let's not forget the J card, the little paper insert in the cassette case. The care that went into decorating that was immense. You'd use your best, tiniest handwriting to list the tracks, maybe add some doodles or inside jokes. It was a work of art. But cassettes didn't just change how we listened to music, they completely changed how it was made. This was the era of the home taping revolution, thanks to amazing devices like the Tascam 4-track recorder.
And that spirit of sharing really took off with bootlegs. In the 70s and 80s, there was a huge culture around trading cassette tapes of live concerts. Fans would record shows and share them, creating these amazing unofficial archives of their favorite bands.
But cassettes didn't just change how we listened to music, they completely changed how it was made. This was the era of the home taping revolution, thanks to amazing devices like the Tascam 4-track recorder.
My J-cards were legendary. I had a whole system of color-coded gel pens. But cassettes really lived their best life in the car, didn't they? That satisfying clunk as you pushed it into the duct.
And the peak of automotive luxury was the auto reverse function. Hearing that loud mechanical click as the tape head flipped over to play the other side without you having to eject it, that was living in the future.
But it also meant your car was a glorious mess. You had tape sliding around on the dashboard, melting in the sun, stuffed into the glove box, and piled on the passenger seat. It was physical clutter, but it was your clutter. Your collection was right there with you.
Until the car stereo decided to eat your favorite tape, unspooling that precious magnetic ribbon into its mechanical guts. The horror! That's when you knew it was time for a change.
And that change came in the form of a shiny silver disc. And while we were dealing with the physical media, there was a whole other revolution happening on television. MTV. Suddenly, music wasn't just something you heard, it was something you watched. The whole culture shifted. Waiting for a world premiere video felt like a global event.
The compact disc. CDs felt like they were beamed down from a spaceship. The promise was perfect sound forever. No hiss, no wobble, just pure, clean digital audio. And you could skip tracks instantly. It was magic.
I remember the moment so clearly, buying my very first CD. It felt like such a significant purchase.
I have to confess, mine was the soundtrack to the movie Clueless. I played Rollin' with the Homies until the disc probably warped.
Oh, that's a classic. Mine was, brace yourself, Ace of Base, The Sign. I bought it at a Sam Goody, and I remember being terrified I was going to get a fingerprint on the bottom of it. I treated it like a precious artifact.
Because we were told they were indestructible. A lie, of course. The first time you got a serious scratch on a CD was a unique form of heartbreak. That repeating skip, skip, skip in the middle of your favorite chorus.
And it spawned a whole generation of urban legends about how to fix them. Did you ever try the toothpaste method? Rub a little on, polish it off, and supposedly it would fill the scratch. Never worked for me.
I heard about rubbing a banana peel on it. A banana! Where do people come up with this stuff? It shows how desperate we were to save our music. It still felt so physical and valuable.
And we collected them in those giant binders or in towers next to our stereos. Speaking of stereos, the height of CD luxury was the multi-disc changer. My friend's dad had a 6-disc changer in the trunk of his car, and it felt like we were in a limousine.
Yes, the cartridge you'd carefully load in the house and then slot into the machine in the trunk. And at home, you had those 5-disc carousel players. You could create a whole party mix that would last for hours, listening to the whirring sound as it changed from disc to disc.
CDs also had this fun little secret, the hidden track. You'd think the album was over, you'd put the controller down, and then 10 minutes of silence later, a secret song would start playing. It felt like you were in on a secret with the band. But there was another format, a forgotten warrior in the format wars, that bridged the gap between CDs and MP3s.
It was the original Easter egg, but that pristine physical world of the CD was about to be completely upended by the internet and a file format that would change music forever, the MP3.
The MP3 era was the Wild West. Suddenly, with programs like Napster, every song ever recorded felt like it was at your fingertips. It was thrilling and chaotic, and let's be honest, legally dubious. The music industry's reaction was dramatic, to say the least. They launched a massive legal campaign, with the RIA filing high-profile lawsuits against thousands of individual users, some of whom were teenagers or college students, for copyright infringement. The music industry's reaction was swift and dramatic. The Recording Industry Association of America, or RIAA, launched a series of high-profile lawsuits against individuals for sharing music files, creating a climate of fear.
It was the digital version of the home taping is killing music campaign from the cassette era. The industry has a long history of resisting new technology, and this was their biggest fight yet.
The music industry's reaction was dramatic, to say the least. They launched a massive legal campaign, with the RIAA filing high-profile lawsuits against thousands of individual users, some of whom were teenagers or college students, for copyright infringement.
It was a digital gold rush, and you needed something to play all these files on. Before the iPod dominated, there were these chunky, fascinating little MP3 players. I had a Rio player that could hold maybe 15 songs.
But on the computer, the king was Winamp. The software itself was great, but the real culture was in customizing the skins. You could make your player look like anything, from a sci-fi console to a piece of wood. It was a form of digital self-expression.
And the visualizers, oh my gosh, I would spend hours just staring at the trippy patterns from Milk Drop or Geis, perfectly synced to the music. It was its own art form. We were such nerds about it.
And the obsession with bit rates, the endless debates on forums about whether you could really hear the difference between a 128 kilobits per second MP3 and a 320. People acted like it was a life or death decision for their music library.
I was a bitrate snob, I'll admit it. 320 or nothing. But all that complexity was wiped away when Apple introduced the iPod. That clean white box with the scroll wheel simplified everything and made digital music mainstream.
The iPod was a cultural phenomenon. Suddenly, those little white earbuds were everywhere. They were a status symbol. They told the world you had 1,000 songs in your pocket.
And that click wheel, it was so intuitive and satisfying to use. It's one of the greatest interface designs ever.
The iPod solidified the idea of taking your entire library with you. But even that was based on ownership. You had the files on your device. The next evolution would change that fundamental concept from ownership to access. And it spawned a whole new kind of digital housekeeping, didn't it? The meticulous organization of your iTunes library. You'd spend hours editing the metadata, making sure every song had the right genre, finding the perfect high-resolution album art, and rating every single track with those little stars.
Oh, completely. And that meticulousness led to the forgotten art of the listening party. Not a big event, just you and a friend plugging your iPod into their stereo dock. It was a private concert where you'd show off your library, playing obscure B-sides and justifying your 5-star rating for that one weird indie song. Enter the age of streaming. Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal. Suddenly, it wasn't 1,000 songs in your pocket. It was pretty much every song ever recorded, available on demand from the cloud.
Which sounds like a utopia, but it comes with what psychologists call the paradox of choice. When you can listen to anything, what do you actually choose to listen to? I find myself just putting on the same old comfort playlist because the options are too overwhelming.
It's so true. And it's changed how we share music socially. Making someone a mixtape took hours of effort and thought. Now, sharing music is as simple as texting a Spotify link. It's incredibly efficient, but sometimes it feels less personal, less deliberate.
The algorithm has also become the new DJ. And don't get me wrong, Discover Weekly can be amazing and introduce me to new artists I love. But it's different from a friend handing you a tape and saying, you have to listen to this.
And speaking of that focus on playlists and singles, it feels like it's led to a decline in the cultural importance of the album as a complete work of art. This focus on individual tracks for playlists brings up a bigger, more existential question. Are we seeing the death of the album?
It's a classic trade-off. We lose that cohesive, thematic journey you get from a full album, but we gain a constant stream of new music from artists. It's a shift from a complete story to an ongoing conversation.
And you know, this whole shift towards streaming and playlists has led to a much bigger conversation: the death of the album. Artists seem more focused on releasing a constant stream of singles to feed the algorithm. And now, with smart speakers, music is becoming even more ambient and frictionless. We don't even have to pick up a device anymore. We can just say, "Hey Google, play some chill coffee shop music." Music is becoming a utility, like turning on a light. It's the ultimate convenience. But it also highlights the ephemeral nature of access over ownership. An artist can pull their album from a service. A song can disappear due to licensing issues. Our connection to the music is now dependent on a subscription and a stable internet connection. And we can't forget how the listening hardware itself evolved. Remember those flimsy foam headphones that came with the Walkman? They barely stayed on your ears, and everyone around you could hear your tinny music. Oh, absolutely. Then came the iconic white earbuds with the iPod. They were more than just headphones. They were a status symbol. You could immediately spot who was part of the Apple ecosystem. It was brilliant marketing.
Then we entered the modern era, where massive Beats headphones became a fashion statement. And now with noise-canceling technology, we've perfected the personal audio bubble, completely sealing ourselves off from the outside world.
What a journey, Chloe. From a big vinyl disc you could hold, to a plastic tape you could carry, to a shiny CD, to an invisible file, and finally to a signal from a server farm hundreds of miles away. So when we look back, the story of our listening habits is really a story of trade-offs. We've moved from the tangible world of vinyl and cassettes to the intangible, infinite world of streaming. It's this constant negotiation between the convenience of having everything at our fingertips and that deeper, physical connection to the music we love.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that despite these huge technological shifts, the fundamental human need for that connection hasn't changed. The modern vinyl revival is powerful evidence of that. People are actively choosing to seek out that tangible experience.
And perhaps the future isn't about finding the next perfect format, but about each of us finding our own perfect balance between the infinite, effortless ocean of streaming and the deliberate, focused joy of dropping a needle on a record.
If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to our channels wherever you listen. It helps other music lovers find the show.
That's our show for this week. I'm Chloe.
And I'm Eden. Join us next time on Easy Vibes Podcast.